We walked past the McDonald's and my friend was like, oh, so in America, do you guys have McDonald's? And I was so shocked. It's like, yes, like it's an American company. And she was like, yeah. She did like, it never really processed like, oh wait, yeah, it is an American company.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Life Exchange Stories of Understanding. I'm your host, Kelsey Ross, and today we are joined by a wonderful special guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hello, my name is Simone. I'm 16 and I'm from the greater Houston area. Last summer, I got the opportunity to study abroad in Japan with YFU.
And Simone, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us. I'm so excited to learn more about you and your experience. So to begin with, how did you first come up with the idea of studying abroad?
So ever since I was young, I've always really had a big interest in other countries and other cultures. And I have had a lot of experience living in other countries as well. So even though I live in Houston as of right now, before moving back here, I was living in Kazakhstan. So my dad's job ends up moving us all over the globe. So I was always really into that. And another thing I was really interested in was Japan. I've grown up watching a lot of Japanese shows and listening to a lot of Japanese music. And once I started learning the language on my own, I was really interested in the idea of like going there someday. And I remember what really got me interested in like study abroad itself was when I would watch vlogs on YouTube, actually. I encountered a lot of vloggers posting their experience going to a Japanese high school or just like compilations on YouTube. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I need to do that someday. And I guess since that time, I've really been fascinated with study abroad.
You've lived in a bunch of different countries. Is there a favorite country that you've lived in your time?
That's a hard question. I probably would say I really did enjoy Kazakhstan because I got to learn a new language. I got to learn Russian. So that was pretty cool. But I think probably my favorite place was Australia. I was living in Perth and we were there for only a little bit under a year, but I think I really, really enjoyed it because I was really young and I got to experience all the wildlife, like kangaroos and everything. I was super into that. So I'd probably say Australia was my favorite.
That is so cool. You said you were learning Japanese, you learned Russian. How many languages do you know?
So English, of course, is my native language, but I am studying Russian, Japanese, and in school, I started learning Chinese. So I'm studying 3 at the moment.
Wow. That's got to keep you very busy. That's so cool. That's interesting. I haven't heard anybody say yet that they were watching like study abroad YouTubers and got inspired by that. Were there any YouTubers in particular that stood out to you?
I know there's this one channel called Hey Say Japan, and it's a play on words on a really popular like Japanese boy group called Hey Say Jump. And I really liked her content because she kind of had like a fun twist on her exchange experience. And she was actually one of my main motivations for me starting my own YouTube channel. I have my own YouTube channel called Simone XOXOS, and I post a bunch of stuff about my experience as well in Japan and different vlogs with, my experience with YFU and everything. And I probably wouldn't have even ended up going on exchange if it wasn't for all that content that I saw on YouTube back in the day.
So cool. And we will definitely make sure to link your YouTube channel in the notes so people can check out your content and get a glimpse and learn a bit more about Simone. That's so awesome. So there's quite a few options with trying to decide who to study abroad with and which organization. So what made you choose YFU?
Yes, so it was definitely a very long process. Even though I studied abroad the summer after 9th grade, I really started like researching different programs and companies back in middle school. And I literally had like a whole written down list of like pros and cons of each program. But it actually was really difficult for me because a big thing that was important for me on this exchange was that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing any of my actual school time here in the US. Like I play basketball in school and I'm a part of a lot of different clubs. So I knew that if I were to go on exchange for a year, I would miss out on those things. But I remember vividly, I found YFU And I was looking through their different programs that they had, and I noticed that they had like a 6-week summer study abroad program. And I was so excited when I saw that. I remember I was jumping for joy in my room because that was the perfect fit for me, because I would still be able to go to school in Japan while they're having school over there, while it would be summer break for us in the US. So it was like a perfect balance of not being able, or not missing any actual studying and stuff, but still being able to experience school in another country.
That's perfect. I'm so glad that you were able to find us and find a program that like really worked for exactly what you were looking for. So you had said you started to learn Japanese on your own. So how long ago did you start, and what sort of tools did you use to assist with your learning Japanese?
I started learning Japanese back in 2018. So that was when I was still living in Kazakhstan. And I don't remember what exactly prompted me to do it right away, but I started off using alphabet learning apps for Japanese hiragana and katakana. And I remember just learning that on my own. And it was just something I did for fun. However, I was doing it so often to where my parents started noticing. And my mom actually saw this as a really good opportunity. Like, oh, we can get you an online Japanese teacher. And initially I was like, no way. This is just something I do for fun. I don't want to be serious. I was still in elementary at that time. So I was like, no. But my mom ended up finding a really good teacher, and she's actually the same teacher that I still use to this day. I'm still with her all the way since 2018. And she's just been a huge support for me. I think it's been almost 7 years since I first started, but I think using applications and stuff along with having a teacher was really helpful for me, because I got to learn not only textbook grammar, but also conversational speaking as well. So that was my Japanese learning experience.
It's so great that your mom picked right up on that and was able to find you a teacher to help support you in your learning. Go mom.
Yes, definitely.
And what would you say is the hardest part about learning Japanese?
I do think there's a lot of hard parts because, there's 3 different writing systems. There's 2 alphabets, and then there's kanji, which is Chinese characters. All of that was really hard at first, but I definitely think the hardest thing for me is reading out loud and making sure my pitch accent is okay. Because even though Japanese isn't really pitch accent based language, it still does have a certain flow and rhythm. And when I speak, I feel like I can do it pretty well. But when I have to read a paragraph, I'm just all over the place. So that's definitely something that I've been trying to work on.
Gotcha. And then kind of getting more into your studying abroad experience. So you find this program and you apply, and then you find out you got in. You're going to Japan. What was that moment like for you?
It was actually a really funny moment. I think when I first found out that I got accepted, it was during lunch, and I was watching a show on my iPad during lunch while eating. And then I just see the email notification, and I was so excited. I remember immediately texting my parents yay that I was able to get in. And I also applied for the JAFS scholarship, the Japan American Friendship Scholarship. And I was grateful enough, was so grateful because I was accepted, and I was super excited. I was like, I can't believe I'm finally going. It's almost like a full circle moment since I've been dreaming of it since I was young. Wow, it's finally going to happen. But
Great. Yeah. I mean, it's surprising the amount of people who don't realize that there are scholarships that are available to students who want to study abroad. I'm not saying that everybody is going to be able to get one or that it's going to cover everything, but there are still some options to help with making the cost a little less burdensome. And I'm so glad you were able to take advantage of that. And that scholarship is fantastic. Were your parents fully supportive of you wanting to study abroad from the moment you applied, or did you have to convince them at all?
It was definitely a very long process. So I have always been I wouldn't say my parents are strict at all, but I, growing up, never really had a lot of opportunities to leave my family, if that makes sense. I had never been to a sleepover ever before going up to Japan. And I was always at home and everything. So I think maybe during quarantine, I believe, the first time I really said, oh my gosh, I want to go on exchange. My mom was like, no, why would we send you to another country by yourself? But that didn't discourage me, kept researching and stuff till like middle school. And I approached my mom again and she was like, we'll see, that kind of vibe. But I think the reason why, I think even my parents have told me the reason why they chose to allow me to go was because they saw how hard I was working, like in terms of learning Japanese, and they could see that this is something that I was really passionate about. And I think also there are like a lot of benefits from study abroad too. And I think my parents were able to see that, it's not just going to be like a fun vacation, that it's actually like really, it's a valuable experience and you can get so much out of it. And I think that's what ultimately convinced them that, maybe we should allow her to go.
Is there anybody in your like immediate circle of like friends and family that you know of who had studied abroad while they were in high school before you?
In my family, there hasn't been anybody who has studied abroad.
Yeah.
I don't know so many people. However, I am friends with this one exchange student from my school, and she came from Sweden, actually. It was after I came back from Japan, but I was also able to see like how she convinced her parents to let her study abroad in the US. But other than that, I guess my family coming from Nigeria, they were mostly traveling for work, not so much study abroad experiences.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, then you find out you got accepted, you've got the scholarship. How long before you got to Japan did you find out you had your host family?
I found out, I think maybe, I don't remember exactly, but I do think it was around maybe 2 months before my exchange, or at least a pretty decent amount of time. And I know like everybody gets their host family information at a different time, but I remember when I got mine, I was so excited, and I never really had like any preference. Oh, I want to go to this city or this city. But I found out I was going to Hiroshima, and I was like, that is like such a cool place because, there's so much history in Hiroshima and such. And I remember as soon as I saw my host family information, I went on YouTube and started looking, things to do in Hiroshima. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to research all the cool places. Yeah. And something really cool was that there were a lot of places in Hiroshima that I had known of before. I just didn't know that they actually were there. Like a famous example is the Rabbit Island. It's an island that's completely inhabited by a bunch of rabbits. And I've known about it for a long time, but I had no idea that it was in Hiroshima. So I was super excited getting to know everything about the city. And I was able to as well get in contact with my host family as well. We used the application Line, which is like a popular messaging app in Japan. It was a really good time when I got to first get in contact with them because like once I was able to actually be in Japan, I had already built some sort of a relationship with them online before meeting them. So
that's great. It can be kind of challenging to get to know somebody through like across a whole bunch of continents and through an electronic communication. What were some ways that you were able to build up that connection through like the text messaging and being able to call before actually meeting them?
I think one thing that I did was I kind of just talked to them about anything. So of course, it started off like, introducing ourselves, and then they showed me pictures of themselves and I shared as well. And I think from there, I started just randomly like saying, oh, I'm so excited to be in Japan or stuff like that. And I remember vividly there was a time where I had made taiyaki at home. And taiyaki is a like fish shape kind of dessert almost. And I had made it a lot leading up to that point. But when I made it that day, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to share this with my host family. I'm really excited about Japanese culture, and I wanted to show them like, oh, I made something. And my host mom was like really excited to see that I had an interest in cooking and Japanese food. And we got to bond over that. So I just think just talking about different things you might be interested, showcasing, oh, today I'm playing tennis or I'm doing this, kind of just gets you more comfortable and, builds that relationship before you even arrive.
Makes sense. That's some great advice that we can pass on to future exchange students too. And so then that moment comes right before you're about to head over to Japan. How was like packing and preparing for all that? Because I don't know about you, but I'm a chronic overpacker, and I know they say you shouldn't be. So how did you figure out what to bring?
Yes, I definitely do think I overpacked because I had to bring an additional suitcase when I came back to the US because I had way too much stuff. But I think So there was a group chat of like, once we got to get in contact with other people who were going with YFU, we made a group chat, and I got to see a lot of what other people were bringing, or, oh, these are the souvenirs that I'm going to bring and stuff like that. But I probably think I was one of the last people among the other exchange students to actually pack. I guess I kind of procrastinated a little bit, but I did mostly follow the list that YFU provides of like things to pack. And however, I do think that I definitely did overpack. If you feel like you're underpacking, you're doing it right. Because I was like, oh, like, what if I need this? Yeah, because you're going to end up buying and bringing back so much stuff. And even it's not only just buying stuff, you're going to receive a lot of gifts. I was so fortunate that not only did my host family give me stuff, but like my friends and my teachers. So I had to have space to bring that back as well. But I do think the packing process could have been a little bit better in terms of me bringing too much.
And I heard you say like students will bring their host families like souvenirs. Did you bring anything with you to bring to your host family?
Yes. So I ended up bringing a lot of like, since I'm in Texas, right, I decided to bring a lot of things that were unique to Texas specifically. I don't know if you're familiar with H-E-B. It's a really big like supermarket. Yes, in Texas, as well as Buc-ee's. So I got a lot of cute trinkets from Buc-ee's and H-E-B. And another thing I actually brought as well was specific gifts for each one of my host family members. You know, something from my host dad, something from my host sister, from my host brother, etc. Just like something personal that, say, if someone's into baseball, I can get them an Astros related thing or something like that.
Yeah.
And another thing I really remember as well is I brought Texas style peanut butter. And I think even though there is peanut butter in Japan, I do think American peanut butter is very different from what they have over there. So that was definitely like something they really appreciated. They got to try like the authentic style, just stuff that were, related to Texan culture and such.
Yeah. I was wondering if you brought some stuff from Buc-ee's, and glad to hear you did.
Definitely.
Wait, Texas style peanut butter?
So it's like the ones that they sell at H-E-B. So it'll have the Texas flag on the packaging and stuff.
Okay.
I was like, oh, this is super, super Texan that I think the taste is like, pretty similar to normal peanut butter you can get.
Yeah.
But it is H-E-B style. So it was Texas plastered all over it.
Okay. Yeah, it's like, okay, I know there's a lot of like different things that is Texas style, and like the Texas original peanut butter was not one I had heard about. I thought like it's a double take for a second, like, wait a second. Okay. So then that moment comes and you hop off the plane and there you are in Japan. So how was that for you?
I think it was really unique because it never, like when I originally stepped foot out of the plane, I was in the airport and everything, my brain didn't really fully process that, wow, I'm actually in Japan. And I think that moment actually occurred several weeks into my exchange experience where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually here. But I think it's just because I was still, taking everything in. And like get off the plane, you have to like meet with YFU, like the YFU staff and everything. And we're all like going to place. So it's kind of hectic, but I think I was really astonished by, wow, like this moment is finally happening,
Yeah, it can be overwhelming. It's especially because there's so many differences between here and Japan. Were there any that stood out to you right away?
I definitely think the cleanliness you can definitely notice it. And I think also there is a huge culture of like being polite and being respectful. And even among like, the airport staff and everything, everybody was super polite and respectful, which is a huge contrast for me being here in Texas. I even remember when I was coming back to the US, after we left, we got off of the plane, the TSA agents were like, really, aggressive. I was like, wow, that was even like a reverse culture shock because I was so used to the extreme, politeliness and everything that was going on over there.
It's like, yeah, welcome home, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my gosh. So you said you were meeting with some of the YFU Japan staff, and there was a big bunch of you that had gone over for the Japan Summer Program together. So were you able to meet your host family right away, or were there like orientations or like stuff that you had to do before meeting them?
Yes, so we did do like a mini orientation, I believe,
Mhm,
in Shibuya. So we were
mhm,
in Haneda Airport, and then we took a bus to, I believe it's something like the National Olympic Youth Center, where
mhm.
YFU hosts the exchange students before they go off to
Yeah.
their host families. And there we did do like a mini orientation where we got to, learn about, what to expect, like, oh, when we're
Yeah.
gonna meet our host families and such. And I guess that was a really fun time because you got to mingle with a lot of the other exchange students and
Mhm.
hear their stories, and we really did have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So there was that orientation. But
Mhm.
after that, the JAFS recipients actually got
Mhm.
an opportunity to go to the US Embassy in Tokyo. So that was a really, really exciting experience for me. I remember we took
Yeah.
the bus and went to the embassy, and it was really professional. We had like name tags and no phones, and we were all wearing formal attire. And that
Mhm.
was a really amazing moment for me. Like I mentioned before, I'd always had an interest in like learning about other countries and such. But
Yeah.
really that moment when I got to speak with, ambassadors and all these people who are working in that field, I
Mhm.
really was like, wow, I think this is something that I would be interested in doing. And honestly, it kind of even led to me like saying that, oh, I think I have an interest in international relations and I might want to study that in the future.
Yeah.
And I think even just that like short time that we did spend in the embassy was super cool. And it's probably one of the reasons why I think I really, really like this field.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. I don't hear too many students getting able to check out the embassy while they're there, especially not in Tokyo. That's amazing. Did you get to explore
Mhm.
anywhere else in Tokyo while you were there?
Fortunately, we were mostly in the center, just
Yeah.
because they wanted everybody together.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to explore as much as I was initially hoping. However, I
Yeah.
do think if I get the chance, or when I get the chance to go back, I would definitely want to explore all the sites of Tokyo and other cities.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I can't imagine that you won't be going back at any point in your life. Like, can definitely see international relations for you in your future.
Are you ready to see the world and gain a global perspective?
With YFU USA, you can study abroad and immerse yourself in a new culture, language, and way of life.
It's more than just an adventure. It's a chance to grow academically and personally.
Start your journey today by visiting yfuusa.org and find out how you can study abroad with YFU USA.
Bye.
Then you got to finally meet your host family. So how was it actually meeting them in person and finally getting to build that in-person relationship?
I was really, really nervous. Remember, I was on the bullet train and from Tokyo to Hiroshima, and there were actually a lot of other students who were also going to Hiroshima as well. So that was good, like being able to talk to them about being excited to meet their host family and such. But I was really nervous. But I remember once I stepped out, I was just smiling and I was like so excited. And what a
Yeah.
lot of the different host families did was they made a welcome sign for
Oh,
the students, and I
yeah.
saw mine and it was so cute. Like it had all the characters that they knew I liked and such. And
Aw.
I was super excited. It was just my host dad, my host mom, and my host brother. My host sister
Mhm.
had the class that she was attending at that time. But
Yeah.
I remember my host brother, he was 7 at the time. Before coming to Japan, my host mom was saying, oh, he's so excited to meet you. But when I came out of the bullet train, he was so shy and he was hiding behind like his host mom. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I do think after a while, once we were able to, go home, I do think
Mhm.
that he was really excited. Like, oh, do you speak English? And like, he was super energetic. But I think it was definitely a lot less awkward than I thought it would be. And everyone
Yeah.
was super kind, super friendly. And I think that was definitely one of the highlights of my exchange was my first day really getting to talk with them.
Yeah. Aw. And you had mentioned
Mhm.
your sign had some of your favorite characters on it. May I ask who?
Yes. So I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of this on this side of the room. I even have the sign, but I really like Rilakuma. On my phone case actually is of Rilakuma. So there's like a little like Rilakuma origami on it, as well as like a Hatsune Miku origami. Like all the posters in the back are Hatsune. I love Hatsune Miku. And that's actually one of the similarities I had with my host sister. She also was really into that as well. And because they knew I had that interest beforehand, decided to make it, paste those characters on the welcome board. So that was really, really sweet of them.
That's so cool that they were like taking that interest in the things that you're interested in and trying to, bring that to you. That is fantastic. They sound like an incredible family, and I'm just very, very lucky to have that experience with them. You had mentioned that you were going to school while you were there in a summer program. I think that would be surprising to hear for some people who may think of it just being like a summer vacation. So how was Japanese school for you?
Japanese school was amazing. Though the program was 6 weeks, I attended school for 4 of those 6 weeks. Because summer break in Japan starts around July 18th. So even like around this time of year. So the last 2 weeks of my exchange was like summer holiday for me. But it was an amazing experience. And it actually ties into one of my most memorable days, of my whole exchange was on my very first day of school. And it was really funny because I had no idea that it was actually going to be my first day of school. Because how it happened was I arrived in Hiroshima in the evening, and then the next morning, my host mom was like, okay, we're going to go to your school and we're going to pick up your uniform and your bag and everything. And that's what she was told, that, we're just going to like try on everything and then we'll go from there. So I remember we went together to the station. It was my first time riding the train. I was like, oh my gosh, like it was a really surreal feeling. However, I do think it was pretty funny because my host mom, it was actually her first time going to this school as well. So because it was a different school that, for my host sister. However, we kind of figured it out together. We were going from one place to one place. We're like, oh wait, this is the right area to go to and stuff like that. But I was just following along. And I got to my school. And I think one of the like very first people that greeted me was my Japanese teacher. So she's the Japanese teacher of that school. So she specializes in teaching Japanese to the exchange students that come to that school. And it was really cool because she actually is a YFU alumni. She went back in the 80s to the US as an exchange student. So she was able to speak English and she was really excited to meet me. And I think she was actually my YFU representative. I think that's what it's called. So it was really cool having to have that connection with her and her being at my school. And I remember I tried on the uniform and everything, and I got to meet the principal. And there was actually another host or exchange student at my school from Germany. And I became friends with her immediately as well, that we kind of went around and she was showing me everything. And I was super excited, like, okay, I have my bag, I have my uniform. And I just remember, I think one of the teachers was like, oh, so like when it's like this time, you're going to like go to your first class. And I was like, wait, like what? I only thought I was there to take my uniform and stuff. So I was like, oh my goodness, I'm fine with that. But I had no idea that I was walking into my first day. But it was really interesting because what ended up happening is that my host mom was like, oh, okay, like that's great. I'm going to go home now. And I was like, wait, I don't know how to get home. It was my very first day going through the station. Hiroshima station is beautiful, but it's huge. And I'm like, from Houston, even though we have, metro and everything, I never really needed to use it. So I was not familiar with that world or anything of that sort. So I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get home. However, my host mom was like, oh, don't worry, it's okay. She's going to write like all the information down and you can show it to like maybe one of your classmates that might take the same train as you. And then they can, help you go. I was like, okay, like, I don't know. Hopefully everything goes as planned. And I think the highlight of that moment was we were kind of sitting in one of the seating areas in between the classrooms. And I could see like some of my classmates were peeking out of the glass windows and were waving at me. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so exciting. And as soon as the bell rang, everybody came. I have a picture that I'll include of everybody like came around me and was talking and was so excited to meet me. And I was was
Aw.
so like, that was honestly like the first time I've ever experienced something like that, where people were super excited to talk to me and everything.
Yeah.
And as soon as my host mom said like, oh, does anybody take the same train? And everyone's like, oh, I can walk home. I can go home with her. And I was like, I felt
Aw.
really happy about that. Even that evening, I was able to walk home with a few of my new friends, and they were able to like guide me like what, at the station and everything. And another thing as well, the first class that I actually ended up going to that day was English class. And that actually was my favorite class of like my entire exchange. I loved English class. And they of course they had the curriculum, planned for that day. But because I was there, they were like, okay, we're going to use this time as a question and answer time for Simone. Let's practice our English skills, ask her questions and stuff. So we got to talk about like what my favorite food was, my favorite shows and everything. And I remember vividly, they asked like, oh, what's your favorite food? And I said, oh, I like broccoli, because broccoli is my favorite food. And I remember everybody started laughing. And my English teacher, he was like, oh, everyone's laughing because they know that I hate broccoli. And I was like, that's so funny. But it was a really awesome experience my first day. And I'm so grateful that my school was really, really like friendly and receptive.
Yeah.
And I went to an all-girls school as well, which initially when I found that out, I didn't know how to feel like, oh, I've never been to an all-girls school before. I don't know how it's going to be. But my school was really, really closely knit together. Everybody had a really strong bond. And I do think because of that, they were so friendly and so excited and eager to meet me. So I'm just so grateful that I ended up going to that school because it was so awesome.
That's so cool. Yeah, it sounds like they treated you like a celebrity in a way. It's like, she's here. Let's talk to her. Let's surround her. That's so cool. I can't wait to see that picture. I'm sure there are some exchange students when they go on program who maybe aren't so sure on how to make friends, or maybe don't have the whole class come out to say hello to help jumpstart those friendships. Do you have any sort of advice for students who are about to go on program who may need some help making friends?
Yes, definitely. And it's actually something I learned from one of those YouTube videos that I would watch about like exchange students sharing their stories. And I think a huge, huge thing in terms of making friends is to just be really confident, even if you aren't naturally a very outgoing person. I'm a very introverted person. In the US here, like I don't really have a lot of people that I hang out with. I'm kind of more reserved. But I knew that if I was going to a whole nother country, I didn't know anybody, I kind of need to be the one to make that first step. And I think what happens a lot, at least with my experience in Japan, a lot of people might feel a little bit intimidated, like, because Japan is very homogenous, they may have never maybe spoke to somebody from another country, so they don't really know how to approach them. But I think if you're really confident and you're just outgoing, it's like, hi, my name is Simone, nice to meet you. Even if your language skills aren't that great, if your confidence is there, people will definitely feel a lot more comfortable around you and, feel like they can easily talk to you. So I just think having a open mindset and just going into it, like, what's the worst that can happen at the end of the day? Like, and I think it really ties into the fact that your exchange is what you make of it. I think, of course, not everything went exactly as planned during my study abroad, but it's kind of how you frame things and how you choose to make use of what you have. And I think that's really important, especially when it comes to making relationships with like not only friends at school, but with your host family as well.
Yeah. Thank you for that advice. I think that's wonderful advice that somebody can be it'll be really helpful for people. I appreciate you sharing that. What were some differences that you noticed with your school at Houston versus your school in Hiroshima?
I definitely think there were a lot of differences. Some of them I was expecting, and some of them I was kind of surprised to see as well. I guess one big thing is we have cleaning time in school. So unlike in the US where we have, maybe janitors or custodians, in Japan, it's mostly the students that are cleaning the school. So after school, there's designated time where everybody has like a certain duty, whether it be like, washing the blackboard or whatever, just stuff like that. Everybody has their own duty and there's a rotation for that. And that was super cool to experience. And I remember like there was one day where we have an extended cleaning time, and
Oh,
everyone was telling me like, "Oh, we're sorry for making you clean. We know that's not how it is in the US." And I was like, "No, like
yeah.
I actually think that's a really cool thing. It
Yeah.
teaches, I guess it teaches that mentality of, always cleaning up after yourself. It builds responsibility as well. So that was
Yeah.
a big difference.
Mhm.
Another difference I can think of is clubs as well. Of course, like in the US, we have a lot of different after school clubs, and it's like that in Japan as well. However, I think compared to the US, there are a lot of more people in Japan who are committed to a particular club. And if you aren't in any club, you kind of stand out if you're not really
Oh.
involved in anything. So that was definitely another difference as well, that, in the US, you don't have to join any clubs. And even though they're still
Yeah.
optional in Japan, almost everybody is in like, oh, I'm tennis, I'm basketball, I'm this and this, it's really
Yeah.
clear cut like that.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that's specific to my school. It was a Christian school. So
Okay.
we had like assembly time in the morning where we had like morning prayers, and we also had times where they would play like the piano or worship time as well. So that was definitely a new experience for me because, in
Yeah.
public schools in the US, they don't really have, like I hadn't had any experience with that. But my
Yeah.
school had that tradition, and I thought that was really cool to experience as well.
Awesome. And were you able to join any clubs during your time there?
Yes, I was able to join the basketball team for my
Nice.
school, and I was playing basketball as well in the US, like on my school's team.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really interesting experience because I could kind of compare what it's like playing basketball in the US versus in my school's team. And my school's team in Japan was really, really good as well. And even my other like exchange student friend that I mentioned earlier from Germany, she actually was on the team with me. And even though she had never played basketball before that, everybody was super accommodating. Like, we're going to make sure it's like the best time ever. So that was definitely an awesome experience. But I do think compared to the US, I think after school sports are definitely longer, like in terms of practice time. I would always come home like late in the evening because we would have extended practices, but they were all like really, really fun. So I think it was definitely
Awesome.
worth it.
Yeah. That's so cool. Is it similar to the US where you play games against the other schools too?
Yes, it is in that style. Even
Okay.
though during the time that I was there, we didn't really have any games or tournaments that were going on, but it typically happens where they do challenge other schools in an arena, kind of like unlike in the US or like in my
Yeah.
school in the US, where we, go to other schools and, challenge there. My school in Japan did it to where there's a big arena that people go to. And then that's when, both schools arrive and then they play. It's really interesting to see those
Cool.
differences as well.
That's so cool. And
Mhm.
not to try to bring the mood down or anything like that, but you had mentioned, there were some things with your study abroad experience that didn't necessarily go according to plan or maybe how you expected it. Were there any sort of like challenges that you experienced while abroad that you had to overcome?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it was definitely an awesome experience. But it was only like some minor things. Before coming to Japan, I was super excited to like get in touch with my host sister because I saw that we had a lot of really similar hobbies and interests, and I was like super excited. However, once I got there, I did notice my host sister was very shy. I think it was just her personality. And I remember there was a time I even asked my host mom, what made you want to host an exchange student? And they actually said it was because they wanted their daughter to experience, talking to new people and like experience the world as well. So it was kind of like something for her as well. And I think that I would definitely wish I could have had a stronger relationship with her. However, I do still keep in touch with her. I send her some messages. However, because of her personality, we didn't really bond right away. But that wasn't a super big thing since I've still got along with a lot, like the rest of my host family. And I was like best friends with my host brother. And I guess the other thing was I really wanted to go to a firework festival, like summer in Japan. That's like one of the most like famous things, the traditional festivals. And I actually did get the opportunity to go with one of my other exchange student friends that she went with my few as well. However, I guess during that season, it was kind of difficult for my host family to take me out to certain events, which I was a little bit disappointed in, but I do think that I still made the most of my experience, even though I didn't get to go to every single place I wanted to. I
Yeah.
understood that, things happen and I still enjoyed my experience. So, but for the most part,
Yeah.
I do think just having a positive mindset helped me overcome those minor challenges.
Gotcha. That's great. I was already going to ask you how you got, like, what your ways of getting over it were, so that positive mindset is key. And I think from what I hear from other students after they come off program, that positive mindset sometimes just kind of gets not even like almost forgotten about, and how important it really is to try and adapt and try to make the best of the situations that you encounter when you're on program. So I'm glad that was in the forefront for you. So you had talked a little bit about traveling and getting to see some of the things in Japan. So where did you get to go?
Yes, I got to go to a bunch of different places. I remember one of my favorite places was called Hondori, which is a outdoor shopping district in Hiroshima. It was really close to my school, so there were times where I would just go there by myself and hang out. And there were so many different shops. And I think one thing I really love about Japan compared to the US is at least my experience here, a lot of the malls kind of have similar styles in terms of like
Yeah.
fashion and everything. However, in Japan, I noticed like each store would have its own individual style, which was really, really cool. You could see like a variety of different things. So that was one place I really enjoyed. I also got to visit the famous Miyajima Island. It's where there's a almost like floating shrine in the ocean. So it's really cool to see in person. And in that island, there are a lot of deer that you can see and ancient temples and stuff. So that was a really cool experience. I got to go with my host mom to that one. Another place was definitely, there was a small festival that I got to go to with my other friend who was an exchange student at the time. And I got to wear like traditional Japanese clothing. I got to wear a yukata. And that was a really, really cool experience for me. And going to that festival, it was actually a different part of Hiroshima. It was like a different district. So it was really cool being able to explore that side and seeing, how Hiroshima City can be different from the other cities on the outskirts and stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool. Did you get to see the Rabbit Island?
I unfortunately didn't get to see the island because it was at the time when I went, it was during the rainy season. Some of my friends did get to go. However, they went earlier during their exchange experience. So like the rabbits were still out. But unfortunately, like when there is, heavy rain and such, it can be more difficult to enjoy it. But definitely if I get the chance to go back to Hiroshima, I definitely want to go and see the Rabbit Island.
Yeah. I mean, makes sense. Rabbit's not a big fan of the weather and all the rain. I can't say I blame them.
Definitely.
And then you got to try on the traditional Japanese clothing and try out the festivals. Were you also able to try some Japanese foods while you were there?
Yes, I loved food in Japan, and I'm always talking about it. Anytime I have Japanese food here, I'm always like, food in Japan was so, so, so cheap. And I felt because there is a bigger culture of going to restaurants and stuff, there is like, at least compared to the US, eating out isn't really considered like a luxury where you have to spend a bunch of money, that you can get a lot of really good quality meals for like really low prices as well. I went to the convenience store or like the little like convenience store booths like almost every single day. I would always eat melon bread. I love melon bread. Yes, I loved melon bread. And I still talk about it every day. Like, oh, I want to eat melon bread again. I really did love the food there. It was awesome. And I can't wait to go back. Even if I just get to like, eat all the food again, like I really, really want to try it all again.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you. I've seen so many content creators who are in Japan who show all the cool and delicious things they get to eat. And I'm so jealous. I just want to eat all of that. And were you able to share some of your like your American foods with your host family? I know you had mentioned the Texas style peanut butter. Were you able to make any of your favorite recipes while there?
Yes, I did actually. Yeah. Considering like the peanut butter, right? I like in the US, like a staple breakfast that I have is peanut butter, not peanut butter, avocado toast. However, my family makes it in like a special way where we put peanut butter underneath the avocado, which now saying it kind of sounds a little weird, but it is really, really good. I've always grown up eating, avocado toast with that and then eggs on top. So I got to introduce that to my host family as well. My host brother doesn't really like avocado, so he didn't really like it, but he did like the peanut butter. However, I actually also got to cook for my host family. A dish that I always eat here in the US that I always make for my family is like chicken curry. Like Indian style chicken curry. And of course, curry is really, really big in Japan as well. They have their own style of curry as well. So I wanted to introduce the kind of curry that I eat with my family. And it was really, really fun because I got to cook the curry and my host mom actually made like the naan that goes along with it. So it was really fun. However, I did make two versions of it. I made a spicy version and a non-spicy version because some of my host family members don't like spicy food. However, I do think the spicy version was a little bit spicier than how I make it like here at home. So I did feel a little bit bad, like, oh, it's not supposed to be this spicy. However, they all really enjoyed it. And that was a really cool moment from my exchange as well.
That's fantastic. That was very kind of you, making some for less spicy for your host family. I know if I were in your host family's shoes, I would have appreciated it because I cannot handle spice. And was it? I'm so sorry if I mispronounced this. Is that the dessert that you had mentioned earlier? Is that taiyaki?
Yeah, taiyaki. Yes.
Did you get to try any of that while you were there?
Yes, I did. The taiyaki that I make here in the US is usually like chocolate cream taiyaki. So I put chocolate inside. However, in Japan, it is usually eaten with red bean paste. And I love red bean paste as well. So I got to try that as well as the custard taiyaki, which was really interesting to try. Japanese sweets are typically less sweet than, the ones that we have in the US, which I really appreciated. However, the custard taiyaki was super duper sweet. I was really surprised, like, wow, even in Japan, the custard is super sweet. But I did get to try a lot of taiyaki there as well.
Awesome. So your program was a 6-week program, so it's a little shorter than the traditional like semester or year long. But it sounds like you jam-packed a ton in your time there. And you'd also mentioned that part of your time there was spent like during summer vacations. So was there any sort of fun summer vacation stuff that you got to do while you were there with your host family or your friends?
Yes, I think it was during summer vacation where I really got to hang out with my classmates from school because during the school period that I was attending school, a lot of there was like testing times as well. So a lot of students were really, studying for exams and such. So it was only really after the exams had finished where we got chances to hang out. And that was super fun. I got to go to like gaming centers and stuff with my friends. And I even got to spend a lot of time going out on my own as well, going out to the shopping district and stuff like that. So that was definitely a really fun summer break experience.
Awesome. That's so cool. So, and then with it being a short-term program, I'm curious if, hindsight's obviously 2020, but looking back, would you still choose to go on that short-term program or would you have gone on a longer one if you could redo your choice?
If I could redo my choice, I honestly think I would have stuck with the 6-week program, not because I didn't want to spend more time. If, I didn't care about, high school in America, I definitely would have gone for the full year. Definitely would have gone for the full year. But I just do think that because of my involvement in school here in the US, it was something I was really concerned about. So having that opportunity to experience both while not missing anything, any important schoolwork or clubs or anything was super cool. However, one thing I would do a little bit differently, maybe I can't say differently, but I do think because it was a short-term exchange, it was only 6 weeks. I think most of my exchange experience was me absorbing everything there was to Japan. Compared to if you were going for maybe a year or a semester, you would have time to absorb everything. And then you would kind of have time to really appreciate it and really hey, I got the hang of it kind of thing. However, I do think because it was so short, looking at it now, I was I'm thinking if I go back to Japan, I would definitely be able to enjoy and really fully appreciate everything I'm doing instead of just taking a lot of stuff in, But I still do think that I'm happy with my decision of going for that short amount of time, even though I definitely would have loved to, stay for longer.
Yeah. And I'm happy to hear you say that too, because I think sometimes some students may feel that because they don't go for the full year, for the full semester, that they're going to be missing out or they're not going to get to experience as much as you would during that full time. But hearing your story and hearing how much you were able to do in your 6 weeks, I think will give some people a little bit more confidence and some hope that their short-term programs are a great time too, and they shouldn't be ignored just because they're not super long.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was time to say goodbye and your program had ended. It sounds like you still were able to stay connected with your host family. But how was it for you when it all came to an end and you had to go back home? How were you feeling and what were you thinking?
During that time, I definitely think that I was convincing myself it's not the end, that I'll still have time to stay in contact with my host family and everything. But I think those last moments, they were happy memories. I wasn't, sad that I was leaving. I was like trying to still make the most of everything, making the most of those, final goodbyes and everything. But it didn't really hit until once we were at the station for the bullet train. What happened that day was all the exchange students will go inside the bullet trains and all the host families will be outside waving goodbye. And I remember I have a video of me recording, like my host family was waving goodbye. And my host brother, he was actually really sad that I was leaving because we were so close during that bond.
Yeah.
But I remember as we were waving goodbye and the bullet train, went away, I just started bawling my eyes out. And it was actually really funny because all the other exchange students were on that same bullet train, but I was the only one crying. Everyone was talking like, oh my gosh, we did this. And everyone was talking about the experience. And I was just crying and I was wearing a mask too. So I was like, oh, it was wet. And I was oh my gosh, I'm finally leaving. And I remember what I did is I was actually listening to music because I actually made a playlist of all the songs that kind of reminded me of that exchange experience or new songs I discovered while on exchange. So it was emotional for me re-listening to everything. And I was actually able to receive letters from my teachers at school and my host family. And I was just reading them on the bullet train and crying. And I remember my host mom actually gave me a gift of homemade earrings. And it was so awesome to see because I remember I was actually there when she was making the earrings. She was making them from scratch. And I was like, oh, those are so pretty. And she's like, yeah, that she likes making earrings. And then once I was on the bullet train and I saw, oh, those were for me, I was like, oh, that was so sweet of her. And just seeing all the messages that my Japanese teacher wrote and that she wrote were really, really touching to me. So it definitely was, an emotional experience, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you still have that playlist?
I do. I still have it, yes.
If it's public, maybe we can share that with people too, so they can
definitely
get a taste for your music taste and the songs that you discovered while you were there too.
Yes, definitely.
Great music. Yeah. Love some good. I'm always looking for a new song suggestion anyway, so that'd be perfect. For any future exchange students who are going to Japan, do you have a piece of advice for them on how they can make the most of their time there?
Yes, I do. I have a lot, but I think the main points are one that I mentioned earlier was just be confident and do not be afraid of making mistakes, especially if you are going for the short-term experience or the short-term exchange.
Yeah.
Make sure you're making the most of every single day that you're there and don't be afraid to approach people. Don't be afraid to ask for help because at the end of the day, having that confidence really makes a huge difference in your experience because you don't want to go there thinking oh, I want everybody to act how do I say? You don't want you don't want to have this idea oh, people are going to act this way towards me and stuff like that. You kind of want to think, okay, what can I do to make, the most of my experience? So that would be the first thing. And I do think a second thing is don't be afraid to take photos and record and to document that. I definitely think talking to the other exchange students that I went to Japan with, a lot of them said that they regret not taking pictures of certain experiences that they had. And I know it can be a little bit awkward as well, but you will definitely be happy that you did because you will be going back and back again, looking at all of your photos and the memories you made. from your exchange experience. So do not be afraid to document that because, those memories will be there with you. And honestly, just have fun as well. Like, it really is a cool thing. Don't be embarrassed. Have fun and be yourself and just have a good time, because at the end of the day, like, exchange or studying abroad is really a once in a lifetime experience. And you want to like make the most out of it by, enjoying yourself as well.
Awesome. And would you say that your exchange has influenced or changed any future plans for yourself that you have? I know you had mentioned potentially going into international relations.
I think future plans, yes, definitely, in terms of what my interests are in, like when it comes to education and stuff. And I do think if I do have the opportunity, I would love to do another study abroad experience, whether it be to Japan or another country, like once I'm in university, especially since I would be interested in international relations. It would be an awesome experience to be able to go abroad again. And I also think my exchange has influenced not only that, but a lot of like personal development as well. I think it did teach me a lot of responsibility, and it told me that, again, your experience is what you make out of it, and it teaches you a whole lot of different like life skills and such. So I definitely think that it influenced me a lot in that way as well.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you had such a positive and transformative experience and that you're able to take that experience and help shape your future a bit more. And another question about your future, what's next for Simone?
I think, honestly, I'm still in high school. So this August, I'll be a junior, but then I'll graduate and I hope to go to university. I do think in the future, I know I do want to do a lot of different activities that relate to like intercultural activity and stuff. For example, in school as of now, I'm the vice president for my school's Model United Nations team, as well as my school's Japanese Culture Club. And that club has a lot of different activities where we, experience parts of Japanese culture, like through games or even going to Japanese festivals that they host here in Houston and stuff like that. So in the future, I definitely want to continue doing a lot of stuff in terms of that. And I do think in terms of even my Japanese like language skills as well, it definitely did help a lot with that. And even like since I started learning Japanese, I've been taking exams for it. So I think my exchange experience really helped me like build a lot of confidence for me to continue taking those higher level proficiency tests and such. So I guess that's pretty much what I have for the future. I don't know where it'll take me, but I definitely know I want to continue exploring that interest I do have.
And I mean, you've got so much time and you've got so much to explore and experience. There's no rush on deciding what to do now. And I'm just excited to see where you go and what you do. You can definitely tell that there's a bright future ahead of you.
Thank you.
And I have two final questions. One of my last ones being, if you talked about a ton of memories and a ton of experiences that you had while you were on program, is there one particular memory or funny moment that we didn't get to share during our time yet that you'd like to talk about?
One memorable moment. Oh, okay. I can think of one. I can actually say two because they're kind of they're related. It's kind of like when people are talking to me about how life is like in America. Sometimes people would ask, funny questions as well. I remember there was a time I was in IT class, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, so in America, do you guys go to parties every day and like do blah blah blah?" I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, I guess that stuff is portrayed in movies and stuff, but I guess it really is different for everybody. Not everybody is going to parties every day. And I remember a really funny moment as well is I was hanging out with one of my friends at like the shopping district that I mentioned earlier, and we walked past the McDonald's. And my friend was like, "Oh, so in America, do you guys have McDonald's?" And I was so shocked. It's like, "Yes, like it's an American company." And she was like, "Yeah." She did like it never really processed like, "Oh wait, yeah, it is an American company." And I thought like just funny moments like that where people ask me about life back home was really interesting. And it was super cool to see how the States are perceived from a Japanese perspective.
Awesome. And then my final question is we'll definitely be putting your YouTube channel in the notes along with that playlist that you made. But if people want to keep up with what you're doing and what great adventures you get up to next, where can people find you?
Okay, I do have my YouTube channel, which I mentioned earlier, but it's Simone XOS. And I do have an Instagram as well where I share some of my experiences in Japan as well, which is just Simone Majek_, which I can also type in as well. But for now, those are where you can see more about my exchange, as well as stuff about how I learned Japanese or what it was like going to school in the morning. Like I have a bunch of stuff on my channel regarding that. And I really hope to pump out more videos because I still have a lot of content that I haven't created yet regarding my exchange. So if you subscribe, be sure to be looking forward to that because I have a lot more in store.
Awesome. So yes, please, listeners, go check out her channel, check out her Instagram page. Make sure you check out that playlist as well. I know I will be doing that once I'm off here, but Simone, thank you so much for talking with us and sharing your stories today. It has been so fun talking with you and reminiscing with you about your time in Japan.
Thank you so much.
And until next time, this has been Life Exchange Stories of Understanding. I've been your host, Kelsey Ross. Bye! Listen to Life Exchange Stories of Understanding now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.